Hey everybody, this is Denny.
And this is James from TeaDB.org, and we are reviewing something a little bit different, as you can tell from our contraptions today.
We are. So we're on episode 24, and with our 24th episode, we're going to switch things up a little bit and brew a little different tea, a little different style. We have a beautiful offering from Camellia Sinensis. It's an Indian tea. It's a Darjeeling. Sama beans is what it looks like it's spelled as, but we don't really know. It's hard to tell, but it's tasty.
Yeah, we brewed this once at the office. Very, very green Darjeeling. And I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of experience with Indian teas, but it was quite good.
Yeah, it was really cool. So we're gonna brew this in a more traditional English style, where we're gonna use a teapot that has a strainer at the bottom. So oftentimes you'll actually have a cup with a strainer, and you pull the strainer out of the cup, leaving your tea in there. This is actually definitely superior because it still lets the leaves float around. But we won't be doing the traditional Gong Fu style where you're brewing for a short time on a leaf and brewing often. So we're just going to brew this once for you guys, have a big cup, and enjoy it the way that we think it would traditionally be drank.
Yep, indeed.
Cool. So we have 6 grams of leaf, and we're going to use all of that in there.
And how hot is our water?
We have it slightly above green tea temperatures.
Okay.
So not at all scorching hot. This did come out very similar to a traditional green when we tasted it, and with kind of a more, well, we'll get into the taste. Yeah, not crazy hot water. So, and we're going to let this sit for a couple minutes.
Yep, the brewing parameter recommendation is to basically do 8 ounces for 3 to 4 minutes. And wow, look at that. It's quite lovely. In fact, brewing in these teapots actually is sometimes quite nice.
Yeah, definitely. So, if this were a Gong Fu style, much smaller container and much more leaf, and for a much shorter period of time.
Yep.
But we're experimenting with this, and it's fun. So this is a lazier way of drinking tea for sure, but that doesn't mean it's any worse necessarily.
Yep. And the leaves look really, really young.
Absolutely.
Very, very small leaves.
Yeah, high quality. They don't look like they're damaged really much. And yeah, small leaves, young, green, get kind of a semi-oxidized look at least.
Yeah, green, purple. Yeah, it almost looks more like a oolong in terms of just like partial oxidation, or if you have a pu'er, after a few years, it'll start to get a little bit darker.
Yeah, and I mean, like James said, I'm very unfamiliar with Darjeeling tea.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about, not to be dangerous about the history of all this stuff, but this is definitely a unique, as we tea nerds will say, terroir, and it's going to produce some really unique flavors.
Yep, and I'm also very unfamiliar with what 3 to 4 minutes feels like as far as steep time. I just keep wanting to grab this guy and steep it
I know,
right now.
I'm ready to get out of here, but
it's been like probably a minute.
Maybe a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, my internal clock is, my tea intuition is definitely off here.
Yeah.
But we'll get these out of the way here too. But yeah, I mean, this is one of 3 offerings that we received from Camellia Sinensis. All were really delicious and very different. Next time we'll also be handling a Camellia Sinensis tea as well.
Yep, indeed.
I'm gonna call that 2 minutes roughly.
All right.
Yeah. So.
So do you know much about just like the Darjeeling area and any of that stuff?
Mountainous, dry.
Yep. I know that
soil.
it is the one area in India where they actually use the Camellia Sinensis varietal.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the Chinese varietal, as opposed to like your chai teas or the Assam stuff where they use the Assamica. So.
Yeah, and there's a great, wonderful history behind all of that stuff. But the long and the short of it is that the tea plant itself was actually taken by British explorers that were able to sneak their way really into China as posing as horticulturists and botanists. And they took out tons of tea plants. They actually discovered that green tea and black tea are the same plant itself, Camellia Sinensis, just prepared differently. I'm going to do this right here. Really beautiful.
Wow, look at that.
Beautiful.
Gold color.
Gold. Quality looks really nice. in terms of the actual tea itself. We didn't need to do a rinse or anything like that. Really deep, rich, beautiful color.
Most of the Darjeelings I've had have been like the leaves have been much, much darker. So this is quite a change in pace for me at least.
And put this up here, why not? So, but to quickly wrap that story up, the British found that Darjeeling would actually hold the tea plant itself. They tried to cultivate it all over the world, but couldn't. And it was Darjeeling that they found to be able to cultivate the Camellia Sinensis. And as a result, Darjeeling tea and the tea economy there exploded. So it was almost an economic play more than anything else, interestingly.
Interesting.
Yeah, so let's give this a taste. Cheers.
All right, cheers. Getting a lot of fruit out of this one. Bitter fruit.
In terms of steeping, how do you think that we fared here? Not very tannic at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's really overly bitter.
No, not at all, actually.
Not bad. Nice and full-bodied. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, we actually brewed this Gongfu style, because that's how into Gongfu style we are, and it was quite interesting. It didn't have a ton of longevity, but it brought out some very interesting flavors.
So what are you getting out of this? I'm definitely getting a little bit of fruit, like you were saying. A little vegetal, actually, sort of like that little bit of the hate.
Yeah, a little bit of that sweetness that I think I more associate with Yunnan a little bit.
Huh.
Out of their black teas.
Yeah, interesting. I guess there's kind of that smoky sweetness that I get from a Yunnan Black.
Yeah.
I think is definitely built into this as well.
Mm-hmm. I drink very few black teas in general, even the Chinese kind. So this is a huge change in pace, at least for my tea drinking.
Really nice and really pleasant. I mean, really pleasant. More lax days of cold maybe isn't the right word, but another relaxed way to make tea.
Yeah, for sure.
Really tasty. Let's give it a smell, actually. I'm curious about aroma. So much more of that, what I would call like a traditional green tea smell, but then adding like spices. Do you know what I'm saying? Just like kind of...
yeah. There's some very interesting, I don't know, maybe vegetal notes to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit... I don't know. I have so little repetitions with this type of tea that it's really difficult for me to speak to in some ways.
I know. I mean, if anything, this is an exploration for us on TeaDB, and hopefully people out there watching when they're drinking their tea, and if they're just new or even if they're a veteran, that there's still an exploratory thing for you guys.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, Darjeeling, I do know also is the one area in India where they will not flavor the tea. Like, they'll usually use, like chai, of course, everyone knows is flavored tea. Usually add milk and sugar to it. So they'll use kind of more of the Assamica varietal for that.
Yeah, strong. Interesting. Well, this is tasty and definitely something that I could drink regularly. How do you think you would pair this with food or drink, or what time you would eat it or drink it, rather? It's
got a strong enough taste that I think this would be a really nice, like, almost immediately after lunch tea for me. Tea time, as the British say. So, I think that's when they drink tea, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. I hope they say that every time they do,
They
too.
must.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I could actually see this being... It's flavorful enough that I could see this going well with food, too.
Potentially.
Yeah. But this reminds me more of kind of a hearty morning tea, something that you wake up to, and it's got a bold flavor. Really, I don't want to say filling in the wrong sense, but it really sort of is a strong flavor. Really, it's not super subtle, and not in a bad way, but again, early in the morning, I think it'd be great to kind of wake you up.
Mm-hmm. It's got a nice lingering taste in the mouth,
really,
like the sweetness a little bit.
Yeah, and like a really interesting nose. Actually, I think that the aroma of this is more complex than the taste.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah.
Really cool. Well, this has been a delicious little sampling from Camellia Sinensis. We can't thank you guys again. Find out more about those guys at camellia-sinensis.com.
Or if you're unlucky enough to live in French Canada, in Montreal, you should go check out their store. I know they have a huge presence over there. A lot of tea drinkers and whatnot.
Yeah, super cool. And if you want to learn more about this tea and others, James.
Yeah, please check us out at TeaDB.org. We don't necessarily have a ton of information on Indian teas or Darjeelings, But we have a ton of information just on tea in general, especially in Asia, China, and Taiwan.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next time for episode 25.
All right. Ciao.